My name is Alex Wafula. So I'll be leading you today in prayers before we get started. All right, let's pray. Baba, tunakuja kwako siku hii, tunaendelea kupa shukrani kwa maana tunatutendea. Tunapojiandaa kwanza mkutano huu na utaendelea kubariki kazi yetu yote. Naomba nikiamini katika jina la Yesu Kristo. Amen. All right. Yeah, so I guess I'll just go ahead and jump right into today's speakers. So I see we already have Edwin Chamba on the call from Tanzania. Edwin, can you hear us?
Hello.
All right. Hey, Edwin, how are you doing?
Hello.
It's
Can
been
you
a
hear
long
me?
time. Yeah, nice to hear you. Yeah, so you can go ahead and get started. I'm just going to go ahead and mute myself so you can start off.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Greetings to everyone. I thank God now. Today I saw you. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Edwin.
Yeah, thank you. Am I going ahead to present or we are taking a prayer first?
We've already done the prayer. You can go ahead and start with the presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Greetings to everyone. I thank everyone for being here this weekend. We've taken the whole week working for other issues, but today we thank God again. We've met again here for our Saturday Pan-African call. I thank everyone, including our teachers, Nana Kuwazenzele, yes, and others. Thank you. Let me go direct to our topic of today, which is the African tradition and culture. The African tradition and culture. The word itself expresses that African tradition and culture is the ways of life in African communities. That is a simple definition that I can give. That when we say African tradition and culture, we mean all the ways, activities, processes of life in African communities. That is what we mean by saying African tradition and culture. I hope many of us understand this. So when we say this, we mean all the way we are doing in our life. As we say that a human being have, maybe we may say a human being have three basic needs. We have food, shelter, and clothes. When we say that we mean life. A human being, to proceed with life, needs to have food, clothes, and shelter, so that the life can proceed on human being. We need all three things. So when we say African tradition and culture is how Africans live in their communities, we mean African tradition and culture is how Africans or how people in Africa live to acquire those three basic needs. That is what we mean. How Africans live and acquire the three basic needs. The way Africans live to acquire the three basic needs, I mean food, shelter, and clothes, is what we say it is African tradition culture. Though nowadays it is changing according to the Western culture, but the main principle is based on those three things. And so when we say that, we may say that some elements of culture includes food, dances, respect, religion and beliefs, marriage, arts, and something others like that. And so when we come to African communities, we know the food that is mostly found in our communities, the dances that we dance in our African communities, the way we dance in African way, the way we show respect to others as Africans. That is what we mean, how our life, the way we respect, the way we believe, like in those days before, even though nowadays most of the Africans, when you ask some of the Africans their religions, most of us, we may say I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, and something like that. If you find someone saying is an African community and saying that I'm not a Muslim, and at the same time I'm not a Christian, I'm a paganism, people may laugh at him or her and say that this one is not socialized, but that is how the way the African ancestors was living on those days. On their days, that is how they live. They didn't know who is Christ. They didn't know who is Muhammad. But life goes on. All the things they required so that they can proceed with their life was there to be given from God whom they believe that is the God who is learning their life. Whatever you may call it, paganism or what, or forgotten culture or denied culture, but it is the fact on how our ancestors was living in their life on those days. Even though nowadays we are criticizing the way they were living, the way they used to marry. Most of Africans were just marrying more than one wife. But when you come to the Christianity, some of the Christian religion, they believe that a man should have only one woman. But that is not how Africans in nature we are. We have our nature. We have our belief. We have to believe on what we have. But something comes in between here. It's just taking our mind. Our mindset is just basing on some Western culture and traditions rather than African culture. We see African culture like it is a curse. We see our culture as a curse. That's a big problem to Africans. And that's why somehow we fail to join up, because some of the Africans have never been thinking like Africans. They think like the Westerns. That's why we don't cope. Some others think like African, pure African. The others, they are the Western. Some African, some Western. They take the culture of here and there. They want to mix those cultures. They can't be mixed. A culture is like a skin. You can change your skin. Our skin is black. We have to be black. We have to respect ourselves. We have to respect our skin. We have to respect what we have. We have to respect our culture. We have to believe in our culture. We have to believe that our culture can take us from here to somewhere which is much better than here. We have to change our mind. We need to change our mind as African youth. We need to change our mind. We need to change our mindset about how we live, about how we believe on the Western. The Western are the Western. That's why they came here. They took what they need to take and go back to their home, build those things they take here, and become more developed rather than us. But when you take years before Christ, the African communities were more developed rather than Europeans. The African communities were more socialized rather than the Europeans. But colonialism is one of the factors that contributed to degradation of traditional cultures. African traditional cultures started to die when the Europeans colonized us. So we have to take out that spirit of being colonized and take in a spirit of being free, being African with freedom, African with something to say everywhere and being respected as African. That's why our community, I Love Black People, have created this movement. This movement is all about African respect, all about African respect. When we say African respect, we mean we have to respect everything about Africans, including our culture. We need to believe on our culture, that our culture is the best rather than any culture, any type of thing. We have to go on. We have to live as African, as free African in freedom without depending on anywhere about culture. Let's respect our culture. Let's live in our culture. That's why we thank Christopher Mapondela, Sinclair Skinner for the movement they bring to Africans, Black people and Africans. This movement is all about liberation, liberation in every angle, liberation in racism and xenophobia, but at the same time, liberation in African respect. At the same time, liberation in African culture and traditions. That's why we see our mother Nana Kua teaching us about herbs and some things like that. She means a lot about that because she's just trying to take something in our mind to believe in African tradition, African ways of life. That's why our mother Nana Kua just teaching us healthcare, and we thank for that. And for today, I may thank everyone for listening and being with me for all the time in my presentation. I need you to remember downloading our app, I Love Black People, through www.iloveblackpeople.com, or you may go in your Play Store, find I Love Black People app, you download it, and you use it in recommending Black friends and Black-owned businesses in those 8 categories mentioned there, so that we can help our fellow Africans in different countries when traveling by creating the Green Book. Also, I advise everyone to go on Amazon and purchase the Green Book. It is there to be purchased, to be used, so that African may not get any problem. Black people may not get any problem during their safaris or journeys in different places by using the Green Book. By saying that, may I thank you everyone for listening. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am because we are.
All right, I am because we are. Thank you so much, Eddie, for that wonderful presentation. Right. Up next, we have Ruth Kalamba from Zambia. Ruth, are you on call with us? Ruth Kalamba. All right. We also have Reverend Andrew Mwima from Zambia. Andrew, can you hear us? Andrew? All right. What about Sikwenda Sianyanga from Zambia as well? Do you have Sikwenda on the call?
No, we don't.
All right, Ivan, what about Dinky Bogatsu from South Africa?
No, but I can see if Snachi joining, maybe we can let you present.
All right, I see him joining as well. If it's Nachi, can you hear us? If it's Sinach, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm just getting online.
All right. Great. Nice to have you on board.
Hello, greetings
Yes.
everybody.
All right. So if Sinach is here with us all the way from Nigeria. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you get started. No, we can't hear you now. We could hear you before.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry, sorry for being late. I just got into my apartment now.
All right. No problem. Thank you for making time to present today.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope all is well.
Yeah, all is well.
Shout out to all the participants on board today's Saturday call. I am Ife Sinachi Uroko from Nigeria, Eastern Nigeria. That's I Love Black People ambassador. I want to first and foremost recommend the Green Book to all my Black brothers and sisters. For me, and in my own opinion, for those of us from this part of the world that is traveling outside the continent, I think that book will be a great tool in helping you to explore the new environment, making use of the recommendations of the Black-friendly businesses, hospitals. You can get healthcare, you can get education, the finances, all of these are there. So I recommend the book for my brothers and my Black brothers and sisters all over the world. It's in Amazon. You can get it, I think, at the cost of $15. Today, I would like to speak on the issue of African Union. It's a pity I have not been making it for some times now due to some natural circumstances. I think on 18th February, African Union will be having their section, their ordinary section. I don't think if it's extraordinary section, but they'll be having a section, I think, from 18th to 20th or so. So this is a great time to talk about the African Union. And this program is all about Pan-Africanism and the Herbal Healthcare Lecture. So African Union is a very good organization. As you know, it was founded earlier, and it was called African Organization, AOU, I think African Union Organization. Then, but because the organization could not perform, then they refounded it in 2002 and renamed it African Union. That union is a motherboard for all the whole African organizations. That union is the only union that is comprising all the whole bloc, all the whole African bloc, beyond economic programs, because most of the other organizations, like we have the ECOWAS, the Southern Africa bloc have theirs, the Northern African bloc have theirs. These are interregional organizations, but it is only the African Union that is bringing all of them together and also going extra miles of trying to maintain security, human rights, economic equality, and every other things that is a common interest to the general African people. But it is unfortunate that this motherboard have not been able to do enough you see, this motherboard called African Union was founded since 2002. And even till up to today, they have not been able to make a significant progress. And this is because the African Union as an institution is not founded, to help Africa grow as a whole. African Union is just founded on the tenets of, on the basis of security and economic growth. I think this is the main program that the African Union is trying to project. And this is why they have been able to, this is why they have not been able to perform. Because as an institution, you have to look without and within. African Union as an institution, as I said, is not founded on the ground of initiating a recovery process for the African people. Because what the African people need after colonialization and slave trade is an organization that will come and rebuild the destroyed temple. You see, the white men, being the Western Empire and the Ottoman Empire, that's the Islamic and the Western, the Christian empires, came as organized society to divide Africa, and they succeeded in dividing Africa. So those people that founded African Union, they did not found African Union in the basis of trying to organize the destroyed African society. What African people is suffering today is a general problem. And the general problem is because African as a society have been bastardized. It have been destroyed. So the main organization that we need in Africa is an organization that will come and organize African society. So we are where we are today as African people. I'm speaking to you as an Igbo man from the eastern part of Nigeria. You see, but I can tell you that the challenges you are facing there is not much different from the challenges I'm facing here. Because the common challenges we are facing is that we are a lost race. And it is only when we come together to form an organization, because as what I'm trying to say is that the African Union is important, but they were not founded the tenet of recovering Africa. They were founded in the tenet of maintaining African peace and growing Africa economically. A society does not survive or sustain only through economic growth and security platforms. Society grows in so many foundations. There are foundations that makes up a society. An organized society, just like what we have today in Africa, is some parts of an extended Western organized society. Then some parts of an Islamic organized society. It's an extension. Like where I'm speaking from today, being in Nigeria, everybody here is a Christian. And Christianity is a tool is just a spiritual tool, which is one of the foundation of an organized society. Africans don't have that. Like today, we are suffering of the ruling APC party having presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates as Muslim tickets. Is a very big challenge in Nigeria today. And we'll be casting our vote in 25th of February. And okay, now we are complaining of Muslim tickets and Christian tickets. What of the indigenous people, the native people that owns the country? These guys have been relegated to the background. Why? It is because our society is not organized. And this is why our brothers and sisters in the diaspora have not been able to extend our own society in the diaspora. If you go there, if you go to the Black neighborhoods, the life they live there is a Western life. But I don't think if you go to the Chinese neighborhood in America, that the life they live there is a Western lifestyle. I don't think so. I'm not saying it with authority, but this is what I mean by organized society. So even the duty of the African Union that they have chosen to undertake, which is mainly, they have other duties they want to undertake on, but mainly is economic and security. They have not been able to progress in it. Why they have not been able to progress in that is because for an organization to progress, that organization must have a solid funding source. It is the 1991 Abuja Treaty that is to establish African Central Bank in 2028. And African Union have been functioning since 2002. So they don't have a solid funding platform. The source of their fund, the 48% source of their fund, which is for their operations, not for their programs. This is why it seems they are not there, but they are there stealing our money. What they are doing there is that they are stealing our money. They are not doing anything there because the institution on African Union itself is flawed. Then the organs there, how they select their parliament, how they select their council, how they select their commission. These things are totally different from the counterpart being European Union. You see, the 48% funding is to be funded for operation. 48% for operation is to be funded by African member states. That's the 55 member states in Africa. But according to the records I have, I think it is only 16 countries out of 50 something that is complying. Now, the rest is not complying. 16 is complying. Now, we are talking of the funding. We are talking of the operation. It is only 16% of the African countries that is complying in funding the operations of African Union. Now, before we talk of the programs like the security challenges in DRC, how are we going to tackle it? We need 2 billion to fund it. Just the way America, the NATO is funding the Ukrainians through America. If African Union is to do that, they cannot, because they don't have a central bank that will impose the 0.2% import tax that they want to generate the remaining program. So the remaining funds for the program running, because the remaining 58% will be divided between international partners, which is the counterpart, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and NATO, and the European Union. These are the counterparts that our own African Union depends to raise majority of the program implementation funds from. So you see, with all these complications, you'll see that African Union is a toothless bulldog that can only bark but cannot bite. So my opinion to round up, because I don't know about time, to round up, my opinion is that for African Union to function, they must have a solid funding platform. And that solid funding platform will be not different from having African Central Bank, just as Gaddafi tried projecting. Gaddafi tried projecting the gold currency in 2009 to 2010, that he was the African Union chairman. Gaddafi requested for an extension of African Union tenure because the African Union chairperson have only 1 year to chair that council, which is not enough. For crying out loud, how can somebody execute any tangible plan within 1 year? Gaddafi kicked against it in 2010 that he needs an extra year. They refused, they play politics because most of the leaders who have their puppets, they played politics and gave it to the Mali counterparts. Immediately he stepped down, immediately he finished his tenure. Then 2011, Gaddafi was murdered. You see? So Gaddafi tried establishing that African currency, the gold currency, and in establishing that gold currency is also establishing the African Central Bank. Now, it is that African Central Bank that will impose and charge this 0.2% import tax. How do you think each country central banks will comply? In fact, the same, like here in my country, because I like dealing with examples or references, like here in my country, my central bank here is not even adequate to tax importers for our own internally generated revenue, not to talk of tax importers for the 0.2 in tax imports, which is each member state contribution to the African Union. So if we have African Central Bank, which will be the bank of the whole member states, it will be the bank of the whole central bank, member state central bank, that will be able to generate revenue adequately for the smooth running of African Union. Then in so doing, we'll have to do away with the partner funding aspects, because we don't need their funds. Most of the funds they will give us is just profits they made from things they collected from our zone. Why are we not able to make those profits ourselves and fund ourselves? Then, so for African Union to be able to bite, one is that they must have a solid funding platform for them to act according to demand. Then, apart from the African Union trying to grow Africa economically and security in maintaining peace, what we truly need in Africa, I hope you guys are following me. It's a pity we are just 18 here. But what we truly need in Africa is a body that will come and organize Africa. A body that will come and organize Africa. The Western world there is just a society that are made of human beings. These human beings came to the world without anything. They came to the world naked, just like Africans. They came to the world, in fact, they were called the early men. The histories will have called them the elements. They came naked, they started gathering. From the age of gathering, they started using palm fronds, depending on what is available in your region, to build house. Three leaf of trees to build house. From there, they started using mud, which is the Egyptian civilization. From Egyptian civilization, they started using blocks and cement. Now they use different other things. This is evolution of human being. Now, other races have been able to evolve, but Africa have not been able to evolve. We have all these things in our backyard. The only thing that is remaining is for us to come and evolve them. For instance, an organized society needs a system of education that makes them love themselves, love their family, love their community, love their states, love their country, and love the passion, and love the path they choose to follow. This is what an education for an organized society entails. This is why if you go to America, it will be hard for you to convince an American to commit a national crime against American. This is why if you go to the organized societies, it will be hard for you to influence them because they have been molded. They have been molded based on what have been organized for them. Education is one of the foundations. Spirituality is one of the foundations of an organized society. I'm stating things that Africa needs. It's not, African Union is not playing a role that will help Africa. I'm just saying the facts here. What they are there, what they are doing there, even the way they appoint our representatives there, all those things are politics. They are just there eating money. The truth is that our leaders are defeated mentally, not physically. These guys were defeated even before they started engaging in politics. So most of them, when they get to their seats, they will become confused, just like our current president here. This one that have taken us 10 times backward because he's confused. Fortunately, he even confessed that I think the challenge is because of the indoctrination of the white men. You know, when they talk of indoctrination, you guys will think it's all about religion. Indoctrination is about the education systems. Indoctrination is about your spiritual life. Indoctrination is about how you get married to the woman you want to accommodate into your space. Indoctrination is about how you associate with your fellow people. Indoctrination is how you participate in bettering your environment. So Africa needs an African education, not Western education. Africa needs an African religion. This thing is here. It's just that we have refused to think in that direction. Now, African.
Hey, so just giving you a heads up, if it took like 2 minutes to wrap up.
Okay, 2 minutes,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, now, the point I'm trying to make here is, in fact, the thing is that we have foundations of organized society. I have mentioned education, leadership process, which they call politics, and an organized society have a leadership process in which they appoint their leader, better leader, good leader, based on the process. It mustn't be the Western way. We are different people. We have a health system. An organized society have a health system. We have a health system in Africa, but have refused to evolve it. This is the challenges. An organized system have, let me stop here. Now, let me now talk of those that should play this role. You see, the major problem we have is that our our brothers and sisters in the diaspora did not go to the diaspora in their own will. They did not go to the diaspora to go and explore diaspora. They went to the diaspora under force. Just as I said in one of the past call, I made a mention of one local chief in Badagry, Lagos, whom was taken out, then sent back, and then posed him as a chief. These are the kind of chiefs that engaged in slave trade. It is not that those are our leaders that we elected. We are responsible for slave trade. So our brothers and sisters, just give me a minute. Our brothers and sisters in the diaspora have to play a very big role in restoring Africa, making reference to the Bible story of how the Jews came back after they destroyed the temple built by Solomon. Africa had the first civilization, they destroyed it. So the diasporans have to come back, just as the Jews came back to rebuild the destroyed temple of the Jews, which Jesus performed in that era. So the diasporans have to come back and organize an organization that will remind the African Union that they have to restore Africa, not to progress Africa. Because if you are trying to progress Africa, you'll be making progress on a faulty foundation, which will only collapse in your way. Then you will not come back. This is the problem we have been having as African country. Like in Nigeria here, since they named Nigeria in 1914, we have changed more than 6 constitutions. Because we make progress in the 40 foundation, then we realize this is not the road we should follow. We'll come back, we'll change the constitution, we'll start afresh. So the whites, our brothers and diaspora, if they don't have the initiatives to start this thing, because we have to awaken Africa, if they don't have the initiative to start these platforms I'm suggesting, then they have to play a role of supporting those within the African continent that have the initiatives resource-wise. They have to play a role. Our leaders, if they wait for our leaders, we can never progress waiting for our leaders because our leaders have been defeated. I know why I'm saying it. So the Western, our brothers and sisters that is in the diaspora have to come back and rebuild the temple just as it is being written in the Bible. It's funny enough, the story in the Bible may be the story of the Black people of African continent. Because when they talk of light, Jesus Christ represents the light of God, and the light of God is more domiciled in Africa than every other part of the world. So my suggestions today is that our brothers in the diaspora have to realize that why we are wandering is because we are not organized society. We have everything it takes to be the best and the greatest country in the world. But that will only be possible when we organize our society. This is my take on today's topic. Thank you for your time, and God bless Africa. I am because we are.
All right. Because you are. Thank you so much, Professor Nachi. That was a very insightful presentation. Yeah, thank you for making the time to present to us today.
Thank you too, bro.
All right. I see we already have Nanakua on the call. Nanakua, can you hear us?
I am. I was waiting to be able to unmute. Greetings. Thank you, Ifesanache. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Joseph, Rosalind, Petula, Moses. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Hey, Yvonne. Hey, Alex. How y'all doing? Good day to you all. I actually have a comment on that, and I was reading the comments as well. I agree. This is what I have found as a traditionalist. However, I'm not a Christian. I think most of us who travel back, most diasporans that travel back are practitioners of traditional African religions, but we're met with contempt and disdain, if you understand those words, right? We're not met with open arms because we practice traditional religions. And because of missionaries and colonialism, right, some people have the mindset that only Christianity is correct, right? And so I've been turned away. I was trying to sponsor a orphanage, and they told me that they only take Christian volunteers, right? But this happens over and over again. But I do not believe in conditional giving. And that is what all of the work that I've done in Ghana, I've only been to Ghana, but all over Ghana, places that even native Ghanaians have never been to, right? You're born in one area, you've never gone to another area, right? I've been to areas, but I only will do work in places that open to non-conditional giving, meaning I'm not going to force a Bible on you. I'm not going to force a theology or a way of life on you before I will assist you. But that is what has been done. So you have people that'll come to the continent and they will offer whatever they're pushing, whatever their philosophy, whatever their beliefs are before they'll give. And so somebody said in the comment that, you know, we have to create these things where there's not these attachments. And unfortunately, that is what happens a lot. So the diasporans, we coming back, but the continental born Africans have to be open to receive people who maybe don't think or believe in the way that you do, so that we can truly reestablish the greatness of all of the continent. So I appreciate your presentation, but that's just my 50 cents. Here in America, we have a saying, right? A common saying is, oh, that's just my 2 cents. That means that's my opinion. But I always put my age number behind it, right? So I'm 50, so I always say that's my 50 cents worth, right? But thank you for that presentation. And yes, that is what it's all about, restoring Mother Africa, because yes, first signs of civilization is there. So Africa is everybody's mama, right? So that's always my perspective. You know, white from whatever mountains of Europe that your people may have dwelled from, Africa is the birthplace of civilization. So she is the mother of all. So we all have to love and adore her and kind of get over whatever brainwashing that we've had. Because of course, here in America, you have folk to say, I ain't African, I ain't never been there and whatever. So you won't get those people to come back, right? The only people you're getting to come back is those like myself that love the continent and will come back and do everything to restore her greatness, meaning her traditional practices, right? But we get a lot of resistance with that. So, but so understand the whole piece of how, you know, but the mind is a thing. We've gotten so many mind tricks played on us, and it affects how we think and how we operate and how we look at our brothers and sisters from different parts of the world. That's part of the fight against xenophobia, right? So it's a mighty challenge, but I appreciate the conversation and us kind of understanding other people's perspective, because that's the only way for us to really truly understand. And then disagree in love, or have alternative understandings in love, because we will not think and agree in the same way. We won't think the same way. We won't have agreement in all areas, but that's unconditional love, right? So speaking of unconditional love, I've often talked about good health care, maintaining your physical, mental, spiritual health is good self-care. That is self-love. Here in America this weekend and up through Monday, Tuesday, the speaker that spoke in my place a couple of weeks ago, Mama Ayo Handy, has started an African American holiday association. And so in the place of Valentine's Day, right, we have Black Love Day, which falls in line with our mission here and what we believe in, talking about loving on Black people. Black Love Day, which is the day before Valentine's Day every year, February 13th. There's a celebration online, a virtual celebration that I promised that I would spread the word about. So I'll put in the comments the link, but it's AfricanAmericanHolidays.org. And if you click on that, today, tomorrow, and into Monday, there are seminars about Black love, how we, you know, celebrate each other, how we love on each other, how we support one another. So I'll put that in the link before I log off, but I do encourage you to listen in on that. So let me, yes, I will send that. So let me try to share my screen. I don't know if Alex or Yvonne is doing that today.
Yes, you can
Okay,
share
I
it.
see it. Yes, thank you. I see it. Okay, so let me take these last few minutes to, and also if I think it looks like most of the people that are on today are maybe joining us from the continent. If there are any people that are in the US that are on the call, please send me, and it could be a direct message or a private message. The folk who are usually on and are supporting us and listening in on our classes, I would love for you to get, I think a lot of the continental African people that are on the calls are good at becoming ambassadors and already are on board with that. I would love to encourage more of the African folk here in the US to get on board and become ambassadors. So if there are any callers that are here in North America, whether it's Canada or the US, if you'll message me, I'd love to get you involved in an ambassador role. I think our numbers are a little down today, so there may not be any people who are on the call at this moment, but if so, please send me a message so that we can try to get you more involved at even a greater level. We appreciate you coming on and getting this good information every week, but we'd like to maybe intensify that a bit. We need you. And we of course thank everybody that's already on board in that capacity. But let me talk about herbs. You all may know, if you've been on for a while, my first love is herbs. I am an herbalist, have been making products, working with herbs, growing herbs for about 25 years now. Maybe a little longer, but I think it's important to know what herbs do, how they heal the body. These first 2 pages, if you are in the group, I did send this a little tardy. It was just this morning as opposed to earlier this week, but you have this handout, and if you don't, I'm sure one of the moderators will put my email in the chat for me. But I can send you this packet if you do not have it. But these first 2 handouts give a really good list of sort of what we would call Western herbs. But further in the handout, we definitely have some additional lists of some African herbs that are native to what I was able to easily find to include was some in West Africa and then South African herbs. I know that there's a whole nother, several other areas, right, on the continent. And if you have lists that we can share from Central or Eastern or Northern Africa, indigenous herbs, I would love to share that as well. But I want to point out that use this as a reference to empower yourself to learn about the uses of our traditional medicines that God, gave us. And this one here, I don't think I always go over this one, but I do want to go over this today. I think that we all should have a natural medicine chest, meaning we should have on hand in our kitchens or in our bathrooms or wherever we might keep our healing medicines. We should have certain things that will address a number of issues that we may have. So it may be something to address aches and pains or headaches or colds or fever, things of that nature, food poisoning or stomach upset or some type of indigestion. So this is a list of some of the herbs, homeopathics, and natural remedies that I think is good to have on hand just in case there is an issue in your household. So if there is a stomach ache, if there's nausea, if there is motion sickness, morning sickness, general stomach upset from eating something that didn't agree with you, ginger is excellent to have on hand. You can have it in capsule form, the actual root itself, where you can peel and infuse in hot water and make a strong tea, or you can get the essential oil of the ginger and add that to your foot baths or to a wet rag and put over your body to help control fever and things of that nature. You can put your whole body into a bath with ginger, and that can help with aches and pains. It can help reduce fever. Ginger, which I know is one of those that grows, fortunately, in most areas of the world. It's indigenous to China, to Africa, to these North and South Americas. So it's easily and readily available. So it is definitely a must-have, not just for cooking, but also for healing. White willow bark is a herb. I don't know if it's found in various parts of the world, but this is like natural aspirin. It's a natural pain reliever. So this is good for headaches, backaches, any kind of body aches. White willow bark is excellent for. In capsule form, it's going to be better. With tea, you would have to probably drink at least 6 cups a day for it to be effective. So I think in capsule form, that's going to be better. This herb here, valerian, probably more so Western herb. Don't know of it being available on the continent, but this is really good for helping calm your nervous system. If you are anxious, if you are depressed, if you're having trouble sleeping, and even if you have some minor pains, some aches and pains, backaches, and it's mild enough for children to use, mild enough for pregnant women to use, mild enough for seniors or our elders to use, but it has a very strong smell. So you're going to want to take this in capsule form. You will not want to drink this in tea because it stinks. Hops, lemon balm, kava kava, these are all separate herbs, but I put them together because these are also considered what we say to be sedative or nervine herbs. These also help calm the nervous system. If you're feeling stressed, there's some anxiety, there's some pressures of the day, work, school, family, what have you. This helps kind of relax you and allow you to calm down. Rescue Remedy, Multi-Flower Remedy, these are the flower essences we'll talk a little bit more about for the stress relief section. But these help balance the emotions. So if you're emotionally upset, these are excellent for that. Activated charcoal, this is great for food poisoning, or if you've eaten something that just doesn't agree with you and you need to absorb the toxins from your body and then remove it from your system. Now your stool will be black, right? It will be black, but this is food grade charcoal, not exactly the same as what we cook, you know, what we put to fire under our pots that we're cooking, but it is a variation of that. But this is what, you know, again, food grade, medical grade, activated charcoal that you take internally to absorb any toxins that's in the body from poisons that have entered the body. And a lot of times food becomes poison if it doesn't agree with you and it gives you some adverse reactions. Aloe vera juice, we know also aloe is readily found definitely on the continent of Africa. It is grown here in the US as well. Aloe vera is a mild laxative. It is healing and soothing to the entire gastrointestinal tract, just as it's healing and soothing to the skin. So this can be very healing if you're having any of those issues. Colloidal silver is something I recommend having on hand just as your own personal doctor, nurse, mother, father, you know, that's caring for somebody, because this is a natural antibiotic. So if there is infection or any risk of infection, you've punctured your foot while walking outside and you know, maybe cut it, or there's some sort of introduction into the body of some kind of microorganism that can cause a problem, colloidal silver is good for that. If there's a cold, flu, strep throat, bronchitis, any number of infections, colloidal silver is one of those things that will fight the infection and boost your immune system. Emergency is a brand name. Definitely in Ghana, it's called something else. One of the times I was traveling with my children, my younger girl was having some stomach upset and they kept stating some little packet. It's a little packet that has a powder you pour into water, but it has vitamin C in it, and it has trace minerals or electrolytes in it. There's different names, but what you see here that I've listed is just sort of the brand name that we use here in America. But it helps kind of replenish the body. So if you've been vomiting, or you've had diarrhea, or you have some kind of stomach upset, or you've lost water, but it helps just replenish the body in certain circumstances. If you've been outside in the heat and you've really been sweating a lot, or if you've had a fever and you've been sweating a lot, there are many ways or reasons that this emergency type packets are used. And then the homeopathic, this is just a kit that has a number of remedies in it. And we will talk a little more about different homeopathic remedies. We know that homeopathic remedies are a little different from herbs because these are medicines that have been derived from either plant, mineral, or in some cases, animal or insect parts, but they are all natural occurring substances that are taken internally to bring the body back into balance. And there are just some conditions in which you take homeopathics that we'll talk about next time. In this packet, also a list of some of my favorite herbs. We are out of time, so I won't go through these. I wanted to highlight some of these handouts. This is a handout that gives you some that are great for first aid care. So if there is a cut, a burn, a rash, you've come in contact with some poisonous plant, or there's nausea, vomiting, anxiety, any kind of sort of extreme or acute situation that's occurring now, these are some remedies that will address those issues, right? So fennel, we haven't mentioned. So this is great for indigestion, for gas, for bloating. Also helps nursing mothers increase their breast milk. Stinging nettle, one of my favorite herbs. This is good for people who have allergies or hay fever, sinus problems, bronchial issues, any kind of respiratory issues, but it's also really rich in iron. Also is rich in calcium. This handout just says iron. Highest in iron, but it's a really green, mineral-rich herb. Tastes a little earthy, but still a pleasant taste. One of my favorites, but it's especially good if you have allergies or hay fever or anything like that. This is a list of some of the culinary herbs or kitchen herbs. We know that a lot of the foods that we cook and season our foods with will also assist the body, especially the digestive system. So it's sort of divine intervention that these foods are what we use to season our foods with, because they also aid in digestion, which is the exact complement. We should always be eating foods that are nourishing, that are helpful, that are going to assist us in whatever we need from the body. And these kitchen herbs are excellent examples of that. They'll have other effects, but definitely things like the dill and the thyme and oregano and ginger, fenugreek, fennel. We know these affect directly the digestive system. Even in addition to whatever else they may do, we know that if we're having problems with our digestion, these are going to be good for. We know that there are herbs that help lower our blood sugar, right? So a lot of us in these really high carb diets, African diets, we eat a lot of starches. And as we discussed last week, we do not always combine them properly with other foods. And so we sometimes have a blood sugar imbalance, right? And so these are herbs that help to lower your blood sugar. Cinnamon, cloves, rosemary, oregano, sage, curry leaves, garlic, ginger, turmeric, cayenne, marjoram. If you eat any of these, or these are normal foods, or herbs that you spice and season your foods with, load up on it, especially if you have high blood sugar. Turmeric, we've talked about before. Can't say enough about turmeric. It has a lot of health benefits. This chart highlights that. I will not go over that at this time. And then this is the chart, and I think it's a little out of order, but I mentioned that there are some handouts in this packet that specify native African, South African, West African herbs, along with herbs from some other areas or parts of the world. This section is on Chinese herbs, I think I have one. These are Ayurvedic herbs from India. I think I have some South American herbs, or maybe they're out of order. I didn't include that one. Pain is a big issue for most people. These are herbs and plants that help with dealing with pain. And so we'll pick up on this next time, but this is important because, again, if you can eat the cure, that's always going to be preferable to taking some kind of drug. If you can eat foods that are going to help your situation, this is always going to be a good option for you. Ginger, apple cider vinegar, cloves, garlic, cherries, turmeric, peppermint, pineapple, blueberries, horseradish, and of course, drinking water. Water is so healing in so many different ways. Know that that will always help a situation. So if you need this handout, feel free to message me. I do have a few minutes, so I'll answer if there are any comments here, or if my email has not been entered here, I will include this. And my time is up, and I will be next week. And thank you all for joining us. Tell your friends to join in, right? Our numbers are a little low today. We don't like that, but we're so glad that you are here. But as always, I bid you good health and
Yes, I think maybe since you started a bit late because of the presentation, you could take maybe 10 minutes and go through the questions.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't notice whether Dr. Wright was on or not, so I didn't want to go over the time, even though mine was cut a little short. So no, I can, because I definitely rushed through that, as you know. So sure, let me go back and spend a little more time on the painkillers. I used to do sort of mobile clinics in Ghana, and I would go and try to assist with whatever issues were occurring in the traditional area I was in. But pain was always the biggest. Everything was, this is paining, that is paining me, whatever the case may be. Pain is a really big issue. Even here in the States, what happens is you have pain being such almost an unmanageable, uncontrollable issue that you have people that self-medicate with street drugs, or what they call recreational drugs, right, to alleviate the pain, right? Or people drink to alleviate the pain, or people, smoke marijuana to alleviate the pain. And I know there are other reasons that people smoke, but just as an example, these are some ways that people are using to cope with pain. And when you are dependent on it, or the behavior gets out of control and there's an addiction issue, in this area, it has developed into a major issue of prescription pills of oxycodone and Percocet and Tramadol and all these different pain relieving drugs that may have been prescribed initially, right, for good purpose, for reasonable purposes. They were abused or misused. And so if we can start eating more healthy, drinking water, eating a good healthy diet. We talked last week about 70% being alkaline forming foods. And the reason, and if you remember last week, I hope some of you that are on here were on last week. One of the things that happened last week, we talked about alkaline forming foods and acid forming foods. Well, acid forming foods is what we want to avoid. And the reason is it creates stiffness, right? It creates dryness in the body, in the bones, in the body, in the muscles, all of that. And this is how, for some people, we get this pain that we are always trying to figure out how to control. So eating natural fruits and vegetables, or what we call plant-based diets, and natural clean foods that are not highly processed, that are not full of meats and sugars and things of that nature. This helps with alleviating pain, in addition to some of these natural remedies that are listed here, right? So we know for sinus pain, there's horseradish. We know that for blueberries, we can eliminate bladder and urinary tract infections and pain associated with that. We know that for stomach bloating or gas or indigestion, we know that we can use pineapple. We know that for sore muscles, peppermint is good for. Turmeric is also good for chronic pain. It could be joint pain, but it could also be other types of pain. We know that cherries are good for joint pain. A lot of people specifically use this for gout, which is a particular type of arthritis. Usually in the big toe, but it can be the foot. It can even move up to the knee. But headaches, cherries are good for as well. Ginger, we know, we just talked about all the other things ginger does, but we also know ginger is also good for pain. A lot of people will use ginger and turmeric together. Vinegar is good for heartburn, indigestion type pain. Cloves we know is good just for dental health in general, but specifically toothaches and gum inflammation or pain in the gums from inflammation. And then garlic, usually the garlic oil is used in conjunction with like an almond oil or some other kind of natural oil, and they infuse the garlic into the oil and they'll insert drops into the ear. They do this a lot with children, but it can be for anyone for ear aches or ear pain. So pain is a big, big issue. A lot of times people have back pains, spasms, things like that. There's certainly other herbs that are good for that, like black cohosh, blue cohosh. These are good for back relief or back pain. We know that there's an herb called cat's claw that's also, or actually devil's claw is good for pain as well. A lot of the sedative herbs that I mentioned earlier that people will use to help relax the body, it has sedative effect, or their nervine herbs. These also help calm pain and reduce pain. So pain is a big issue. I always just encourage you to try something natural before going to something synthetic or some type of prescription drug, or definitely before some sort of recreational or street drug. And so in terms of herbs, we know that natural, and in most cases they are safe. Of course, there are some considerations to take into account. This is why I always suggest, even in terms of accessibility, but also in terms of safety and usage, you can get good direction from your local herbalist. And in a lot of cases, this may be your Lorisha, your Sangoma, your Akumfo, or your Dentiny priest, or a different part, your, oh gosh, what do they call the Vodun priest? So it may be your traditionalist, your person who practices a traditional spiritual system, or it could just be a straight herbalist where that is all they do and they have your local herb in your community. But go to a local healer or herbalist and know what is readily available in your area. And then you can get direction as to which herbs are safe, which ones are used for different conditions. So whether it's pain, whether it's indigestion, whether it's high blood pressure, whether it's diabetes, whether it's, you know, any number of conditions that we may, you know, suffer with, follow those recommendations to, you know, and to get more information. This handout here will just give you, of course, direction on dosage, you know, your typical dosing for capsules for an adult or an adult sized person are listed here. Well, it's listed, where's the adults? So generally say an adult may take 2, what we call double lot capsules, or triple lot capsules. We may take 2 capsules 2 or 3 times a day. But for a child, you may split that in half, or in a third, or in a quarter, depending on the age and size of the child. So this handout just gives sort of some direction as to how to use herbs and what precautions to take and things to consider. I will go back through here. And so you'll see some of these herbs we've already talked about, but just to let you know, and I think when I teach about herbs, I think it's important to know where herbs come from. I think to be a well-informed user of herbs, it's good to know what is grown where it's sourced from, or where you get certain things from. I think that that's very important. And so I think, yeah, so again, so we're kind of with this section. I see there are some questions here. Yeah, Krishna, that's a tough question. I don't know specifically what homeopathics can clear up aneurysms in the neck. If I did, I don't know if I want to make such recommendation here. You can email me. Okay, okay, so some of these were some issues somebody was having. Yeah, okay. So I'll message privately. Okay, just scrolling through. Yeah, and I don't know if I don't know if my email is listed here, but I'm going to put this in. Oh, and I also promised the link for the Black Love Day. So my email is here, nanaakua1@gmail, and then it's www.africanamericanholidays.org, and you'll just go under the Black Love link that they have, or the Black Love page that they have there. And so I think is all I have. I don't know. I have another appointment. Is Dr. Wright on, Yvonne, or?
With Dr. Wright, you are going to be playing the record she made, since she's not available for the call. She's right now in Cuba.
Okay. Yeah, well, so I have an appointment, but okay, so I will stop there at the time that I had missed. So I'll say goodbye again. So I will look forward to seeing you all next week, okay?
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua, for the wonderful lecture, and people who want to receive the handouts. I already shared an email. Yeah, I can see you also shared your email. They can reach out to you for their handouts. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, up next we are going to play the recording that Dr. Wright made. Since she wasn't able to join the Zoom where she is right now, she can't access Zoom. So feel free to drop the questions. We will make sure that she received them, that she can maybe answer them in the group or during the next call.
Good afternoon.
class located. So I'm recording this session for Other Black people, our session on the readings that you have. As you can hear, there's a lot of noise, so it's hard to get into a quiet space where I have a connection. So this is pre-recorded for our session today. That being said, you had the readings for Du Bois, and you also had another document, which was the resolutions for the first and the fifth Pan-African Congresses initiated by Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois. And those two documents are basically to speak to the fact that Du Bois made his contribution to Pan-Africanism in the form of the Pan-African Congresses, which were continuous. And you should have read about them in the chapter you had the previous week, Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists, where it gives you the foundational history of Pan-Africanism. Well, out of that first Pan-African Conference in 1900 would emerge the Pan-African Congresses initiated by W.E.B. Du Bois. And there you have in your readings the first Congress in 1919 and the fifth and arguably most important Congress in 1945 in Manchester. That being said, the Congresses would become the think tank through which African leadership would struggle around ideas of continental unity and liberation for their individual states and nations on the continent of Africa. So Du Bois, although you see in the document on race, right, he gives you his own genealogy, which is very multi-dimensional and multi-historical. He ultimately ends that document in talking about his family genealogy and identity. He ultimately ends on the issue, ultimately ends on the fact, or settles on the fact, that he is what? A child of Africa, right? So he's telling you that he belongs ultimately to African people, in spite of the fact that he has the sordid genealogy, which is the mark of colonization, which is the mark of slavery and enslavement. And yes, it's the mark of the capitalist interests of other people being imposed on African people, right? African people being used as commodities. So, what you should reflect on in terms of the document with the resolutions is, what does an organizational body such as the Pan-African Congresses do? What do they do in an organized fashion? What are the resolutions? What do they aspire to do? And have they, or do they fulfill that vision and mission? Now, out of the Pan-African Congresses, or should I say the Pan-African Congresses would be the setting through which the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, will emerge. And that will further advance the interests of African nationalists and embolden them really to struggle around liberation in their individual countries once again, right? So now that's another organizational body born out of one organizational body, the Congresses, that would foster the ideological development for Pan-Africanism to emerge. this is extremely important. As I was saying, this is extremely important because this would be the ideological development that Africa needs amongst leadership in order to foster continental unity, right? So the Pan-African Congresses essentially are a think tank that lead to the construction of another think tank, which is the Organization of African Unity. And the Organization of African Unity would also further engage in ideological development that would allow for the emancipation or the liberation struggles on the African continent to take place. This is important because before action comes thought. And so these bodies that are organizational expressions prepare people to engage in the actions that they will engage in later on. This is similar to what you're doing in All of Black People in the sense that before you go out or before you can fully engage your ambassadorship, you do need to engage in some ideological development that helps you understand why you do what you're doing. Okay, so that is, apply that, synthesize that in relationship to, the Pan-African Congresses and then the Organization of African Unity. What you will get this week, in addition to this lecture, is you will get a chapter from the book Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist, where essentially we will study one of the cases that allow us to even discuss Washington as a Pan-Africanist, and that is the African exclusion measure, right? So the title of the chapter is called The African Exclusion Measure. You guys have to excuse me because there's a party going on, and I don't have as much juice as I would like in terms of being able to do this at another time and space. Okay, so on my phone, I don't have enough battery. So the case is evidentiary, and it is evidence of Washington's Pan-African sentiment. But it really is a model for us to see how Pan-Africanism can be expressed in the policy and legislative realm. In 1915, the U.S. Senate had passed, just a month before, a measure as part of the larger bill in the United States saying to exclude anyone of the Black or African race from the United States forever. Booker T. Washington in particular noticed this, and he is someone who in an organized fashion challenged this and eliminated this piece of legislation. Now the case tells you how he did it. The case that you will read, this chapter, will also tell you why he did it. And who he did it for. Did it, meaning challenged the legislation, got the legislation thrown out, and why, right? And how he does that. So that is essentially the crux of, what the case is about loosely. I want you to read it, so I'm not going to tell you the details of it, but it is a measurable expression of Pan-Africanism, okay? It is measurable in the sense that it changed U.S. policy forever, okay? Had Washington failed to eliminate this piece of racist policy from being passed and enacted in the United States, most of the people that we know who have impacted the United States would not have been able to enter the United States if they were not already born here, or not enter the United States after 1915, period. So very important case, helps us understand how to weigh and measure anything, but in this case, legislation. Very important in understanding that when we weigh and measure and we assess or qualify things, we should be able to very clearly see who benefited, right? And that's one of the ways we can assess whether or not something is Pan-Africanist or not, okay? I think that's it. I'm actually posting this in 2 parts, so Yvonne should be sharing this in 2 parts. And by the time you actually see this on Saturday morning, you should already have the readings, which is this case I just discussed. I will be in sparingly, but where I'm at right now, I don't have a really good connection. So my connection is probably going to be in and out. However, you can, as always, post questions in the WhatsApp group in response to the readings and the materials. And we'll keep discussing it. Now, this case that you're going to read with this week's readings, that will be in part of our discussion for the duration of this week. My conversation about Du Bois is just touching base on your understanding and recapping what you should have read the previous week. The other item that you're going to see in the context of our WhatsApp group posted by me between now and the time we actually have our session on Saturday is the document by Garvey, Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, as some of you would already know, was the founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Okay, so part 3, to conclude our session, you have once again the readings from last week, which were Du Bois and the Pan-African Congresses, along with this week continued with Marcus Garvey's reading, which will be posted in the group, along with the chapter, the evidentiary chapter on Booker T. Washington and the African exclusion measure of 1915, which is again the evidentiary chapter that gives you some example of what it is to engage in Pan-Africanism in measurable ways. Okay, so along with this lecture, which is in like 3 parts, you'll have the readings for this week, and I expect, obviously to have some discourse in the chat, the WhatsApp group, regarding the actual case. Okay, I think that's it. I am because.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone that stayed on the call till the end. That was the recording from Dr. Wright. If you have any question, you can just reach out to her in the group. She'll be able to respond. Thank you, Curtis Murphy, Elem Nyongo, Prosper Kamara, Jennifer Tau, Karim Ahmad, Nikule I, Siabonga Peter for staying on the call till the end. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I am because we are.